Hello everybody, welcome back to Double D Construction. Just wanted to let you know we decided to go after the dozer today, so I saw something that people on YouTube might want to see. I haven't really seen anything done on it, so I figured that I would show it. Part of it people have seen. That what we're going to do is we're actually going to deconstruct and remove the drive unit and put this very beautiful brand new unit by RC Construction Projects on. So part of the reason why you would want to go to this is when it's oil filled, not grease filled, so it's smoother and quieter, but also it's also a brushless system, so there's a lot to be done to get this installed. So I figured maybe documenting that, people would want to see it. They might want to know what's out there. On this unit particularly, just like the other one I've installed on the other side, or not installed, but the other one I've taken apart and gotten ready to install on the other side, I've already made the extension pieces in order to install them back into the wiring, because I've already, as you can see here, I've already deconstructed all the wiring. I've already removed a lot of the components from the original ESCs, which are for a brushed motor, the factory ones, and deconstructed all the wiring so that way I can install these and get them set up and set up the wiring the way I'd like. But like I said, I've already created the extension pieces, so they'll be real easy to install. Once I put them on, I won't have to worry about trying to connect the little connectors, because the wires are kind of short for these motors. But I've already got that done. So just to make life easy, it's like everything in life. If you do everything the hard way, sometimes it'll get you. And what we're doing with these extension pieces is I'm just using 14 gauge wire and adding components like and using these kind of components. These ones were a different size than the ones for the ESCs. These are for the ESCs, but we're going to basically install them modularly, so you can install each extension wire in, and if, say, one of these dies, it won't be the end of the world. I won't have to cut wires and resolder and all that. I can just disconnect the connection points. Nothing too major, just all simple stuff. As for the color coding, you'll notice that I used black on this. There's red on the other side. That's how I'm going to differentiate between left and right on this unit. And according to people who know a heck of a lot more than me, with the brushless stuff, I guess the wires, it's not as important as to which one is which. I guess we're going to find out if that's true or not when I hook it up. I'm going to do a little more research, so don't quote me on that. We'll definitely go over it when I start reconnecting things. And by all means, subscribe or comment if you have any questions. I will try to get to them as much as I can and as quickly as I can. And if you guys are interested, we may do a video on all of the wiring, just because again, I see a lot of guys talk about what they've done and show a broken down bulldozer or an opened up bulldozer, but not really how they hooked everything up, where they hooked it up, and all of that. I love doing these kind of videos. So I'm a very mechanical and technical person. I'm one of those weird people that will buy things like this, or like my loader over here, and spend more time tearing it down, fixing it, and improving it, and have a lot of fun doing that. It's just the way I am, I guess. So anyways, both of these motors being that both of these drive units being that they're brushless, we have to of course change out the ESCs. We're going to change them out with these Hobby Wing 60 amps. I think that's what he said on his paper. He said recommended was a 60 amp ESC. Let's see, actually what's cool is when you get these units, they are numbered, and he talks about what you have to do in order to install them. However, and how to disassemble the original drive units and assemble these into it. So it's pretty awesome kit. The guy's really awesome dude, really nice guy, and has some really awesome things going on with his business. I still have to order a grill for this thing. He does a cat one that has special spots for the hoses, so it looks realistic. Like I said in a previous video, I've got decals I'm gonna add, but what we're planning on doing too is getting this 9,000 milliamp hour battery mounted in here. I was able to reorganize and rearrange the wiring in the loader to be able to fit one of these, because right from the get-go they don't fit. Barely, but they don't fit. Now in this one, I found that if I remove the cab, I can slide it in there and put the cab down over the top, and it will fit in there if I can hook everything up the way I'm expecting to. So we may not do that just because you'd have to remove the cab every time, even though it's only 2 screws. Well, no, it's actually 4 because you've got 2 on the side grills too. These guys over here. So I may or may not do that, but that was the intended plan. Get this factory ESC out. Just on a side note for RC construction projects, these are the tracks that I picked up for this thing. Absolutely gorgeous, and all steel. They also don't have hammer out pins. They are clipped in there, so that way they're nice and tight. You don't have to hammer them out. They won't come loose, except for this guy right here is a quick release. See if I can get a good angle on it. So it's a little tiny hex screw that goes into a pin. So they're easy to take apart. Absolutely beautiful handiwork. He's done a lot of really awesome things that I've seen. He has a dozer blade that I can't wait to get one of these days, but hasn't been in stock for a little while. But I also did get the handrails, and then what else did I get from there? Well, now I can't remember all the things, but he has some hardware that I'll probably order too, just because, to be honest, as much as I think this is a really impressive machine, I really think they could have done a much better job in sourcing better hardware. I mean, this dozer I haven't had too many problems with. I had 2 studs break off on my loader just trying to take a wheel off, and that's pretty insane. So, plus the tool that they give you kind of fits, kind of doesn't. Sometimes it rounds the bolt, sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of a pain, but you know, quality control. In the end, this thing is well worth the money, and it's really neat. Once I'm done with the sound and everything, it's going to be awesome. Anyways, without further ado, let's get on this. So I did set up a little extra light because, one, I'm not even 40 and I'm starting to feel like I'm going blind, but also it'll be better for you guys to see, so hopefully it comes out really good in the video. Although, another side note, when I was doing the wiring, you'll see this is a 12 section, one of these guys that I still don't remember the name to. This one that comes on it is a 10. Since we're adding the brushless motors on there, we're adding 2 new positions, or I don't want to call them circuits, but 2 new spots that need to be plugged in and hooked up. So we're going to do a bigger one of these, most likely. I may be able to finagle that one to work still, but probably not. I'm probably just not going to waste my time with it, and I'll just use this piece here, just because I think it'll make more sense. I don't know that there's really a necessity for these kind of things. You can do soldering and all that to make these not have to be there, but to be honest, it's simple, it's easy, and it makes taking it apart very simple comparatively. Much easier than desoldering and cutting wires and all the other fun shit that a lot of people don't like to do. Pardon my language. So we're going to get on this, and we're just going to take it apart, and I'm going to go through it. And zoom in. So the first thing you're going to notice is there are 6 bolts on this. Now all the wiring and all that's disconnected in the back. It runs off, this being that this is the right side, the wires, back up, you'll see you'll see me holding the wires right here. They run off to the left side of the machine because the actual drive units, I'll grab one real quick. Oh yeah, here's the factory one. This is the whole, man, keep on. This is the whole factory drive unit. Especially with the motors themselves, they're pretty large. I have 2 bolts pinned in here just to hold it together because it won't stay together if you don't hold it together somehow. They're just pinned in there, they're not actually bolted, and I can take them out if I really wanted to. But all of these bolts need to be used in order to install the nice new one. But I'm also going to order new hardware because, again, I don't like them. They're crap, to be honest with you. Even though the machine is awesome, their hardware's garbage. I can't say that enough. So if you can get much better hardware, then that's pretty much all you have to do, as far as I can tell, when it comes to that. I've heard a lot of grumbling about it, so about the hardware. And so since I don't like problems, I'm probably just going to go through locked up RC or RC construction projects. Just depends on what kind of bolts you want to run. RC construction projects are going to have bolts like this. The ones from locked up RC are going to be smaller heads with a little flange on them, much like you see in a car, or many other things actually. But they'll use an actual 2mm head, not a 2.5mm head like these are, and like the RC construction projects ones are. But the RC construction project ones are really good. Like I said, can't say it enough. These things are, the hardware's not so great. We'll see. Hopefully I don't have one break off when I go through this. The other side worked out really nice. However, I did find out that these were really loose. So it's a good thing that I've gone through it. I'm still going to go through the rest of the tracked area to make sure that all of these are ready to go. So anyways, we'll take these. Now the key with these, sometimes it'll just plop right on. Yeah, see, like there was absolutely no fight. These weren't even on here tight at all. So when you first get this thing, even if you're not going to do all the upgrades or the things that I'm doing, I would 100% in every way, shape, or form recommend that you go through and check your hardware. So here it didn't fit perfectly. You just press it on, and a lot of times that will work, so you can get some good grip out of them, or good grip on them. But that didn't work that time. It's actually rounding the edge of it. So now you just grab it, put some pressure against it, and at some point it will break loose. And it will loosen up. Just gotta put a little pressure, it'll come right out. But they aren't on there very tight, which is not a good thing, because in all honesty, with that, or not in all honesty, but the way these things work, from what I've seen the other videos and from taking the other one apart, this is your connection between the drive motor and the sprocket. So if these 6 are loose, you're going to loosen them up, you're going to start having problems, and problems in that area are definitely not a good thing. So here, see how that popped on there? Because I put a little pressure on it. It wouldn't have done it otherwise, so now I can just unscrew it. And bear in mind, unless somebody has a much better technique, and I wish I knew it, if they did, you're going to scratch the surface of it the second you go to take these bolts out. There's nothing you can do about it, it's just the way it goes. I just got to be careful with it. Like here, I had to put a little pressure to get on it. Now it's on it. Now I can just unscrew it. But again, they aren't very tight. Unlike the oil fill, you don't really have to worry as much about a seal. But you still don't want them loose, because again, this is your entire connection between the drive motor and the tracks and everything else. Pretty crazy when you think about it. It's 6 little M2 bolts, and that's it. So you know, it's stuck in there. That's what you want. So, see, it's not going around it, it's just rounding. the edge of it, I mean, not the actual whole bolt. Put some pressure behind it, you just turn it. And you will grip. At some point it will pop on there. They're just, like I said, they're garbage. I think I need to stop doing that because, quite frankly, I'm not unhappy at all with this machine. I just want to get new hardware, is really all it is. So now that we've got those bolts off, it's going to be really simple. You just slide this out, and here's your gearing. Let's see if I can get a good picture of it. So these are what tend to fail on these units when they have an issue, are these 4 gears. That's what I keep seeing. Obviously I have not run this dozer, it has not seen anything yet, so I can't say it from experience, but I've watched a lot of videos on it. Guys that have these things and the problems they have, loose bolts and shattered gears like this. I think it's RC Scale Builders does a good video on it. I thought there was somebody else, I just can't remember right now. When I do, if I remember to do it, I will try and put their videos up because they're very informative. And I recommend that if you're going to buy one of these, do all the research you can on it, because well, the more you know, the better. So there's a little shaft right here. I'm just going to leave it intact. On the other side, it came out with the face. So I tend to keep things pretty organized. I'm very retentive like that. I used to be a mechanic for a while. I also have done transmissions, and transmissions are one of those things you're very particular. So you want to be careful. So these ones, they're kind of tight, which is nice to say that if I would have run it, they wouldn't have failed, which is good, at least on the other side. However, being very small especially, the point on this thing is not perfect. Let's see if we can get it in focus. Can we get it in focus? I guess not. So as you can see, the silver on the tip of it, that's a little bit of wear, so you gotta be really careful. So when you do these, you want to make sure you put a lot of pressure into it. Get it in there, put a lot of pressure, and then turn. Hopefully it pulls out like that. I felt it give, and it came right out. So thank God for that, because these things will break very easily. Just knowing the size of screw, they are very easy to break, and being that this is kind of, I don't want to call it rounded, but not perfect, a little worn, they will round very easily, especially being very small. So it popped in there, put a lot of pressure. We're gonna turn it, pull it out. If I was going to keep this thing running, this drive unit running, I would probably replace the hardware with something stronger. Don't know, I haven't really looked into that, to be honest with you, so I might not be able to. I might just want to have spares. But let's make sure it's stable. Is it still stable? It looks stable to me. Okay. But that would be something I would look at, just because I don't trust these little things. The other thing is making sure you have really good tools. Because if your tools are garbage, you're going to get the same kind of problems with bad tools as you will with bad hardware. So here's that last one. We're going to take this fourth one off. We're going to put some pressure against it and turn. Alright, so this right here, this ring, is what holds the actual sprocket and everything on there. Don't get me wrong, the sprocket itself can come off the outer housing, but what keeps the outer housing from sliding off were these 4 little screws, or bolts, machine screws. I don't know the exact term of those particular type of screws. I think they're sheet screws. But regardless, let me just find my tools. Let's take this guy here. And the other one around here somewhere. Need to find. Okay. Well, I had another pliers around here somewhere. Oh, story of life. Gotta live it. Now I'll probably also do a video on some of the adjustments for the track. As a side note, one of the things I did before I decided to just completely replace the new tracks, I was trying to decide whether I wanted to use them first before when they started breaking. I was just going to replace them, but instead I'm just going to replace them right away. I might as well, since I have them. One of the things I did was pull a couple pins, because for some reason the machine, they'll give you 2 new pieces of track, just to so you have some spare parts, but yet for some reason they won't give you a spare pin or 2. So by doing what most recommend and taking it from 42 links down to 41 links per side, you have a couple more pieces of tracks and then a couple spare pins pulled out, which is always helpful. Just a quick recommendation, not from me. Well, it is from me, but I mean originally stated by people out on the interwebs. So here is, oh come on, don't be like that. Alrighty. So here's that ring gear, that retainer, and now the other fun part. So this is the actual housing, the bearings in there. We are going to take them both out at the same time, because why not? So here's your sprocket and outer housing with the bearing. This is the actual bearing right there. For some reason, the bearing sealed differently than the first one, I thought. This one has a little seal attached to the inner housing, not the bearing itself, which I thought it came with the bearing itself, so I might have to relook at that. But regardless, it has a seal on the back, so that way grease can't get out the back. And then of course the front is the front seal. So it's that simple, taking this thing apart with the drive unit. You really don't have to go much farther than that, just because they losing my train of thought. You really don't have to go much farther than that. You don't have to take the what do you call it? You don't have to take the wow. You don't have to take all the gearing out and all of that. It's not necessary at all to remove this. So you can leave all of that in. The best thing to do, in my opinion, is to unbolt all this and then slide it back together while it's still there, and then just pull the whole thing. And that's basically what we're going to try and do. Instead of trying to do what I did the last time, and pull this thing on its own, put it all together first, and then I'll try and pull it, and we'll see what happens. Well, maybe, we'll see. Maybe I will decide to do it the way I did last time. So now it's just getting all the bolts. There should be 10. And so, same thing as before. Put some pressure against it. Get in there and don't go crazy with it, just get a little pressure and you'll feel it go around the head. And the second it's loose, it should tell you by doing its little click where the threads pop out. Like that. There it is. And as always, I'm going to recommend replacing this hardware with something better. But so far I've been pretty fortunate with this. The loader was a very sad, unfortunate situation. Because when you pay for something, or more, and you go to take a wheel off and you have two of your studs break off, it's kind of disappointing. Anyways. So this is another one, just put some pressure against it, towards it, and turn it, and it will come out. And like with everything, especially with stuff that's round like this, I will always do a cross pattern just like you do with a wheel, with a normal wheel. If you see, you can see how it sticks in there. Which is kind of helpful, except that some of them, they don't stick in there very well. They just won't let the thing around it at all, which in my opinion is a problem. So, just one of those things. But again, I'm very happy with it, and it's going to be an amazingly cool machine. That's why we're putting so much into it, because why I'm putting so much into it is because we, as in my friends and I, are going to beat the crap out of it. In the sense that it was designed to do actual work. We are going to work it. We're going to work it hard. Some of these are not that tight at all, which is a trip to me. Just go around and pull them off, and soon they will be removed. And these are all that are holding this on, so once these are unbolted, this thing will come right out. Now the motors are really bulky, so it will take a minute to get them off. You just got to direct them through the hole. So that way you can make sure that they come out properly. saw it drop down a little bit right there immediately as I just barely turned it. So these things, like I said, have not been tight. So I would recommend anyone that buys one of these that they go through this and double check it. Looks to me like it wants to come out right now, so we will pull it out. So I'll just direct this. Sometimes it'll fight you, just a little up and down motion, slide it right out. The wires are fairly long. And that's pretty much it in taking it apart and replacing these things and removing it. So now, because we didn't take it completely apart, it should be really easy to put back together. So essentially, we still have our seal. We take the housing right here and just slide it down on it. Now, of course, there's the bearing. Which is up against the seal, I guess. So that should be okay. The other thing, to figure this out, for some reason it's not seating down enough. Maybe it's supposed to go inside that. I can't remember right now. And I don't feel like looking back through footage just to figure that out. So we'll do one of the things that we probably shouldn't do. Let's pick it out of here. I was going to dump it over, but there's enough grease in it, which is actually a good sight because the other machine that I have, or the other side, was not set up like that at all. So it appears that this is not resting in there properly. So I need to figure that situation out first. So we'll pull this apart, figure out why that's not going in all the way. There's gotta be a reason. So there's that. Different side? I don't think so, but it's worth a try. Nope, definitely not it. Alright, so now figure out why this is not going in all the way. There really isn't anywhere else for it to go. So let's try this. Take this out. Right there. It's not working. This needs to. So this bearing needs to sit down properly, and I need to figure out why this is not going in on there. That is really interesting. If I were to take the seal out, it wouldn't seal. That would be bad. Your side was set up differently. That goes like that. this is supposed to go around that bearing. It didn't when we pulled it. Yeah, so there's that. And then I'm getting my hands all coated in this shit, which is not what I was going for, but what do you do? Alright, so clean my hands off real quick, because I'm one of those. Ugh. So, now we've got this put together. I bet that's all it is. It fits around like that. What's going to happen? This guy's going to drop down like this. Alright, see. So now you see it sits flush. Okay? Which is what we wanted. I just don't remember seeing that in between. The other bearing setup that I saw was a seal that was attached to the bearing, not separate. So I thought. Maybe I'm confused, but regardless, it's now good to go. That's what's important. So now we're going to take this. Going to line up the holes on one side, right? Take one of these guys, and I'm going to attach it to a little guy here. Very careful, because of course if it falls that would really suck, especially on the carpet that I have. Luckily this is a hobby room, so this is not going to be running, so I just get it tight enough to hold. I'm not too worried about making it operationally tight, I just want it to hold. There's the hole. And on to the next one. Sorry guys, didn't realize you couldn't see there for a second. Alright, so just as a quick recap, as you see, you just have the 4 little screws. That's your retaining ring. That's what keeps, well, not that. That's what keeps this from removing off of the actual mount that it hooks to with the seal. Okay, now the motor is still not attached. If I were to just hold here, the motor could just slide right out, and then all the gearing would come out, which would be bad. However, even though that can roll like that, this thing is not connected still, because the gearing itself, if you were to turn the motor, would only turn the little gear inside. It would not turn the whole thing. That is this guy. Like I said, your only connection to the actual sprocket and tracks and everything else for the motor is actually this plate right here with these 4 little gears. Hence why there's a lot of stress on those. So we're just going to slide it in there. It's so greasy it's not going to go anywhere most likely. So now we just have to put a little pressure and roll it around a little bit, and the gears will pop in. That's all there really is to it. Now, don't get me wrong, you still want to line up the gear holes, right? So just pick it up a little bit, just out of the gear, roll it around to right around there, and then you just kind of, it's not going. Let's double check why. Gears are there, everything's there. So now we just gotta fight with it until it gets in. A little pressure behind it, it will pop in. It's just going to be kind of a pain. A little bit. Boom. Now that it's in, holes should be lined up. You just turn until the holes line up. But if you put it where the holes are basically lined up before it pops down, and you just go side to side like this, it will pop down into the gearing. You just have to be patient and don't get upset and don't beat on it. And now that we have that, now we can put these screws in, these bolts, right? See how that slid right over the bolt head pretty easily, and we're just tightening it. We're literally going to tighten it just enough to tighten it down to hold it. I'm not reassembling this to use it. Obviously, it's going to be stored because we're removing it and replacing it with a much better unit. And the thing is, with this hardware, you can't really get a lot of torque on it. You can, it's just not great. Okay. You see, I'm going to put the rest of these in, since they'll actually sit in the hole. See very well how you can. So first I did this one back here, I did this one, got them to where they're just snug, not super tight, just because I'm not replacing this, or I'm replacing it, I'm not going to reuse it. So now we'll do the rest of them in a star pattern, just like you would with any other vehicle. Just get it to where it stops. Now, if I were putting this on the unit to use and run, I would probably be thread locking it with blue thread locker, just for the sheer fact that I don't trust it. Being that this is your only connection, you've only got 6 bolts. I've seen the one guy was talking about, I kept having him break. Well, he was missing them. Sorry, not that he kept having break. He was missing them. Ended up replacing one because it was bad. I would rather just replace all the hardware and then not worry about it, honestly. Especially with something as expensive as this thing is. So there is your removed and fully functional drive unit. Now that it's put back together. They're really that simple. There isn't much to them. There is grease in there. I did want to note the grease that was in there. It looks a lot like same stuff that they used to put in N-scale locomotives. Well, railroading, it's made in China, probably around the same place. So I have a feeling that the grease might be similar, and it's definitely not great. I would recommend, if you're going to take these apart, getting some really nice marine lubricant, like marine grease, and using that instead. Another thing I'll note is, if you notice, the gears themselves, or the drive units themselves, are about the same, or are the same size. However, your motors are completely different, right? Kind of cool, because I'll just stick them over here like this. So now with this brushless one, the motor is about half the size, so you're actually going to give yourself a little extra room in the back, which is always nice. Never a bad thing to do that. I do want to note with these, they're a little different. They run differently than most of them. They're not like the car motors where the just the middle spins. This one the motor itself does, so it needs a little extra space. That might be why he did that. I don't know for sure, I haven't talked to him about it, but I'm assuming that has something to do with why it's a smaller motor. It's also the gearing in this is a little bit different. So the first thing we're going to do is take this apart. In order to install these, they have to be taken apart. Now I don't have the seal that goes around in here. I can't find it. I believe it wasn't with the kit like they normally are, which could have just been a simple oversight, or maybe I lost them. I just don't really know. Because when I opened it was quite a while ago, I was super excited, and maybe I was dumb and dropped the packet that had the seals in them, but I don't think so. But you know, I'm a human being, so I'm not perfect either. So stuff happens, I need to contact him. I'm probably going to order a second one of these because I want to build another dozer with a different paint scheme and all that. I think it'd be fun. So I'll probably order another one of these, and I'll just see if he can send me the seals. So I won't be able to fully complete this tonight, but we'll take it apart, we'll inspect it, we'll look at it, we'll see how it works and what it looks like compared to the inside of that. It's a little bit more complicated, but super cool. It also is shipped dry. I know the other one was. I'm pretty sure this one is too. They won't have oil in them. They can't. But yeah, anyways, we're going to go after it. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these bolts. Every single one of these bolts has to be removed in order to take it apart, just like the real thing. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then afterwards I'll resume the video. I don't think you want to watch me take all these apart. So we'll see you here in a minute. Alright everyone, we are now back with one bolt left. So we can now disassemble this thing once I get it removed. Like I said, the hardware in these things is phenomenal. Just slide right on. Every single one of these bolts, smooth, easy, and simple. Just the way life intended. So, there's all the bolts that go to it. So now, let's take her apart. So this one's a little bit more complicated. We're going to take this, I believe, if I remember correctly, this comes right out. There are 5 gears instead of only 4. Help with being a little bit more beefy. What we're going to do, and it's dry, so what we're going to do is we're going to pick each of the gears out, and we're going to make sure that we put them down where they need to be. Doesn't matter which one of these you put them on, as long as they go onto one. I tend to be very particular about making sure that they go back together in the same way that they came out. I don't think it matters with these, but I also don't like finding out the hard way that that's not the case. So, take these like this. And now, much like the other design, this one also has a lock ring, or a hold ring, but only 2 of the bolts hold them together. The nice thing is with that other one, see how this can still separate, right? I'm not going to do it all the way. I have them pinned together with 2 of the bolts. But whereas this one here, you can't do that because these 2 bolts that this ring slides around hold it together. As you can see, next to the motor, you can see the bolt right there. You can see them sticking through here, and there's 4 of them. 2 of them hold the ring, which hold the whole thing together. 2 of them just hold the part the bearing rides on, the middle part, the middle housing, the inside, together. All the gearing, however, is dry because it's shipped that way, but it's also loose. So we're gonna end up taking that all out here in a minute. First, we're gonna take this apart. So, kudos on RC construction projects, because you look in here, not only do the gears look like they're made well. I have to ask them if they're all hardened and special and all of that. If not, I may have some made for it. See, I think that's fine. But I mean, so far that I've seen, all of his work is very good quality. Very good quality. I'm very impressed and very happy. But these are in here pretty tight, so I push down nice and tight, and I'm going to turn until I break them loose. To say that I'm going to break them, I feel like I'm going to break my poor tool here, and I didn't. So that's that one, and this one. They're the ones that are sitting on top of the ring, not inside it. Let's see, this thing is honestly a cheap tool. Luckily, these hex heads are pretty large size, so it makes life easier. Not having to worry about, stripping them out very easily. Again, good quality parts, and they're going to be coated in oil, so they kind of have to be. So there's one, and two. That's all it takes to remove that ring. Like I said, as you notice, it's all dry. It's going to be shipped that way. I've been saying that a lot. I just want to make sure I hammer that home so people know that if they do spend the money on these, and they're not cheap, but if they do spend the money on these very quality, very nice pieces of equipment, that they understand that they're going to come dry, so that way they don't go to run them and just destroy them within, a run session. So this right here, we're going to take out the housing with the bearing. And what you're going to see is that there's your bearing. You actually have two oil seals in the back, which I really wish he would have put some oil on them before he put them together. But regardless, that's okay. We're going to prime them before we put everything back together. We'll put oil along the two inner seals here, and then we'll take the bearing and we'll oil the bearing real nice so it's not making noise, so we know it's pre-oiled before we put it back together. And just as a side note, you notice this is, I think, brass. It's all brass. This guy is brass. I believe this is stainless steel or hardened steel, and then I believe this part is brass. But you'll notice that while this is brass, your actual gear is, if I remember correctly, hardened. I'm pretty sure it's stainless steel, he says in his website. So that way it doesn't, get all torn up. Because if they try to do brass, your tracks would just eat it alive. So now, set this off to the side here with the others. So now we just have the gearing that's in there. The way it's set up is actually really, really nifty. So there's actually 5 here, and I think that's done for strength. You want to make sure when you take it apart, there's on each one of these is a washer, and that washer has little divots in it, or little jut outs to slide in the grooves of the gearing. That's so once they're lubricated, the other gears don't tear up the backside and wear out the backside of this piece. So each one of them has a washer in each layer, so that way that and the gears don't wear down. It's an anti-wear tactic, basically. So what's interesting is that has 5, and then this one moves to 3, which I did not expect, but that's how he has it set up. And yeah, so I'll put that in there. Of course that didn't help because now it just fell over. Pretty sure. Oh, nope. Be careful with that. take out this one. So if you notice, there's only 3 here, 3 here, and this is actually a lot bigger. The gear on it. This one. If you notice, here's your washer, right? So this will ride on the ends of this, so there's no wearing, especially in the parts that don't turn, like the shaft that's right there in the middle. But if you notice, on this, this actually has the little points on it. See if we can focus on that real quick. No, it's too close. You see the little points in it, those ride in the grooves of the gear. So go to slide it on, and you put it in the actual gear grooves, gear slots, right? Then we'll go and take these. So this one also has the 3 with the larger gear. I believe this is how they get their gear reduction and everything. It's very interesting, but really, really clever. The way that they did these planetaries, which I don't know if I know that the factory one is similar, but I believe he uses a lot better components, a lot stronger components. Now what's interesting is over here, is after all of that, your last set of gears are not metal. They're actually, and wow, I failed there. They're actually plastic, surprisingly enough, which I had no idea he would use plastic. I'm actually rather surprised that they did. I don't know why. I don't know if that's a safety mechanism, essentially. Just so that way, if there is a catastrophic failure with the motor, it will just kill the gearing in here, not throughout the entire model, not throughout the entire setup. But I don't know for sure. I've never asked him about it, but it's pretty interesting. Anyways, so this right here is your planetary gear setup with this custom unit. Like I said, what's odd is that he used plastic on top of it. The rest of them are all, it looks like, really nice hardened gears. And the parts that fail, usually this first group here on the factory ones, there's 5 instead of the 4 that are on the other one. And that could be also for gear reduction. You want, when you're trying to get torque out of a brushless motor, you generally want the lower kV ones. And so that's what we have here. And of course, major gear reduction, because that small little motor doesn't tend to have a lot. Anyways, so that's how it's set up. If you notice, this is where the bearing rides. So when we go to reassemble this, I'm going to lubricate around here because the bearing rides there. I'm going to lubricate the bearing and where it rides in the housing itself. We're also going to, and this is all gear oil. I think 80, 90, 75, 90. 75, 90 what I have. No, 80, 90 is what I have. I'm going to lubricate these seals, and I'm going to lubricate the inside of this with the bearing, all that, with that gear oil to help it seal. Now, there's supposed to be a set of seals for this also, for one for each side. This is how you seal at the front. That's why it's not super imperative, everything around the front here, like all the bolts having a torque or anything, because the seal is actually sideways. So it just has to be pressed in there all the way and sealed nicely. And you always, always, always lubricate your seals before you ever slide them onto anything. Just for safety reasons. More than anything, it keeps this seal from being damaged. But anyways, so what we would do now, and will do, is we will install the new motor with its mount. Of course, just like we said before, I already have all the extensions made right here. So we're going to go up in, obviously. Now, I am going to grab those, pull them through, so that everything gets done properly. Because the last thing you want to do is have issues. And of course, with a hydraulic model, the last absolute fear that I have is hitting hydraulic lines and destroying hydraulic lines. And I just don't even want to mess with that idea. That was the first thing that kind of worried me with these. So what I'm going to do here, now in the factory model, these motors had the wires sticking off and up to the side, so your right side came up the left side of the model. But these ones I actually am going to go right side to right, mainly because if you look at the motor, right here, you're seeing the wires go directly in sideways, unlike the other ones where they go in from the back of the motor. So we're just going to keep them on the right side. Maybe I should have gone, you know what, we're going to change this, actually. We're going to go right side red, R to R, just kind of makes more sense. Instead of doing otherwise. So I like to be more careful than I have to be, because that won't hurt you like not being careful will. So anyways, and I'll probably just switch the parts too, just because better safe than sorry. But for now, I'm just showing how to install, so don't worry about it. Not yet, anyways. So here, now that that's on there, we know where it's at, right? So you've got your connector right here. So for me, since I'm going to run it up the side here, I want to have the connector right about here. So we're going to line it up wherever we want it. The part, not the connector, the part where the wires connect to the motor. You want to put it wherever it's going to be less stressful on that part. So if we're going to be going this way, it's probably better to do it this way. Going up the side like here. I'll run it under the hydraulic lines because, well, why not? So I have it about where I want it. Now I just line the holes up, and that's literally all we got to do. Now this isn't going to be permanent, as I'm going to order new hardware, plus I've got to get the O-rings for it anyways, for these. But again, we'll get it mounted on there so you can at least see how that installs. And if you were just taking apart, say, the factory one and installing a new one, because sometimes those fail, and now you've seen that process too. So I tend to usually go up and down, top to bottom or bottom to top. So we're going to try and get that in there. No, we're not going to tighten it down all the way yet. We're not going to tighten it down yet, because we'll line up the others. I'm going to make sure you get that bolt now stuck in that screwdriver pretty good, so you don't have to worry about it popping out. Now we put it through here. Now I can tighten it down. again, I'm not going to torque it down or anything. I'm just trying to hold it in place where I will actually put the other hardware on there if I decide to. I mean, I'm going to order it anyways, but in case I change my mind, I'll just put the other 2 bolts in when I'm done. And as you see, these are basically just a direct bolt-on when it comes to part swapping. Wiring's a little bit different, of course, but that's a whole different situation. It just depends on what you want to do. Normally, if I was planning, I knew for sure I was going to just put these on and then run it, I would be putting blue thread locker on here. But again, since that's not the goal at this point, just running it as it is, then I'm not going to do that. Because when I'm ready to take it apart, I want to make sure that I'm ready for it. I'm ready to just take it right apart. Alright guys, so minus the 2 bolts, obviously they're pinning the other one over here, or they're holding it together. But essentially that's how you would swap out your drive units. The disassembly and reassembly of these factory ones over here, these guys, are just not that complicated. Pretty simple, especially if you're switching them out. You of course could have pulled all the drives out, all the drive gears and everything out. There are other videos showing that, and the other thing about that is a lot of times they'll send you, at least my understanding is that if you blow up the stuff and it damages it, they're gonna send you a new one, or you have to get a new one to replace it. Hopefully that's not the case, but sometimes it's easier just to find that. I have seen where the gears were for sale, although I can't seem to find them now. So yeah, but yeah, it's a pretty in-depth little process, but it's not that complicated like many other things. Once you get them in there, just like here, I've got the 3 wires ready to go. And I got them long enough so that way they can be hooked up anywhere in the model. Now they are a little long. I usually tend to like to have longer wires just in case anything happens. But that's generally how I set it. That's what I do. It's not necessary. You can just have them, I think, about this long right there, but I just don't worry about it. I put them a little extra longer so that way if I need to, I can always cut them down. You can't make them longer. So And as of now, the effective idea is to take this guy here, get two of these and mount them right in front of the grill. I won't do that now as I need to order a grill. In order to take that off, I have to push it in where these would be. I also need to disconnect some hydraulic lines and run those back through this grill and then run them through the new grill and reinstall them in order to install a new grill on it. So we're not going to do that as of now because I need to get those in. I'm also going to be putting lights on it and everything else, but I need to take it apart more so I can plug the hydraulic tank. As these models tend to have, they have your fill here and a breather here, and the breather will, especially if you get on a hill, will leak pretty bad. So even if you fill the tank properly, it's still going to leak on you. So my plan is to basically to cap it off once I fill it up, or just to cap it off. Some guys will drill holes in here so that way they can run it up through there. Not obviously, but I tend to like more scale stuff. I don't really want to do that, but you can plug the breather, and I guess there's a couple of people, there's one for sure that I remember putting in a video that he's never had a problem after he plugged it. Kind of regretted drilling a hole right here because of that. So he would have just plugged it in there, which is probably what I'm going to end up doing if I don't run that breather straight back to the filler neck so that it still has a breather. But I need to make sure it's a sealed system. The other option was to retank it. I just don't feel like doing that because then it puts your tank in a completely different location, and in order to fill it or drain it or anything, you'd have to pull the cab off and everything apart, and I just don't want to do that either. So anyways, this was a video on that. Don't know that anyone was going to show any videos on how to deal with these, so I hadn't seen any, so I figured I would go ahead and put that out there and what I've seen now that I've been, taking them apart and all of that. And if you have any questions or anything like that, please let me know down in the comments below, and you're welcome to subscribe. Please do. That's always awesome, and I'll try to get to all your comments as quickly as possible once you put them in. So thank you very much. You guys have a great night, and I'll hopefully be posting a lot more. And if you really want to see how I wire it and how I set up the wiring for these guys, please just let me know in the comments, and if we get a bunch of requests, I might just have to do that. Thank you very much again, and have a great night.